Thanks for joining us. Today, we are diving into why traditional leave management, whether it's your legacy software, outsourced solutions that you're using, or just the darned spreadsheet that you can't find a way to get rid of, often fail both employees and HR. So to help us with that conversation, we've brought Jen, our fearless CEO and founder of Tilt. Thanks so much for joining us, Jen.
Thanks for inviting me. Happy to be here.
So just kind of setting the stage here, Jen, when you zoom out, how would you describe the current state of leave management in most organizations today?
Reactive. I think leave management is still a unsung hero of the HR world for a lot of reasons. And it's typically viewed as a pain in the ass, as a compliance headache, but as a forcing function that has to be done. And so I think you put those ingredients together, and what does it result in? Bottom of the to-do list, a delegated to the newcomer, a very unloved job to be done, is what I would say.
For sure. And in your opinion, why do you think people just kind of stick with whatever they have in place, even if it's not working for them?
Mm-hmm. I think three things. One, people stick with what they've always had because they don't know that there's a way to do it better. Two, they don't have the budget for it, which is very, very real. Or three, there's a lot of pride that we see out there, especially in homegrown systems. Understandable. Some HR leaders have spent years building out incredibly complex, incredibly impressive homegrown systems. So any one of those three barriers could prevent outsourcing.
Yeah, I feel like we're all probably understanding of that like beloved spreadsheet that you created with all, it's filterable, it's designed, whatever that looks like. I totally get that aspect of it. Yeah. That's kind of from the HR perspective. What about, from the employee's view, whenever people are relying on these outdated systems or this really outsourced model, what tends to go wrong?
Well, I mean, the stories are countless of the call center effect, they'll call it, of I call a 1-800 number, I get a different person every time, I have to share my story, often sensitive, over and over again. It's very confusing, it's very cumbersome. I think that's your more common experience of an outsource scenario with an employee. I think the newer complexity that's been added to the leave landscape has exacerbated that. So I sit here in the state of Colorado. Colorado passed the family program last year. That is an entirely new program that an employee has to partner with either their HR team, sometimes their friends at work who've gone on a leave to try to get institutional knowledge around the water cooler, and sometimes an outsourced vendor. So it's just compounding this complexity of an already complex system, of an already emotionally acute system or experience, which is just a recipe for, unfortunately, when in reactive mode, like we talked about is typically there, a really rough experience. And as I often say, a bell that is darn near impossible to unring from an employee experience standpoint, and often for the negative, unfortunately.
Oh, for sure. I'm even just pulling from my own personal experience. I went on leave right after Colorado family was passed. And even just seeing my experience getting to have the privilege of using Tilt and being in an organization that respects the sanctity of leave. And then also just mirroring my husband's experience where he kind of comes from a small org that the law just passed. They had no idea what they were doing. And even he was leaning on me, like I became his LSM in that experience. So I definitely see that. Kind of going back to the HR side, where do you see the biggest challenges with outsourced leave management, other than some of those high level things that you touched on?
I think that HR gets into the profession of HR often because they're people. They identify as wanting to help others, enjoying being in a profession that is set up to help, to smooth the way, to remove blockers. And because that's their natural tendency or what they're drawn to, that includes leave. But the problem is as we talked about, the system around leave of absence is so complex, is so cumbersome, is so inclusive of all these regulatory and compliance components that it turns it much more into a formulaic experience, like a forcing function often for HR. And that just butts up against their natural tendency of being human. And so I think that it's really unfortunate that HR has really been left behind, in my very biased opinion, of pulling the systems along with them and allowing them to use a tool that matches their empathy, that matches their intent of helping their people. And that's where, in today's day and age, there's no reason that we can't create a tool that brings that intention forward for HR and allows them to still be that people support role, but without a spreadsheet. Instead, an intuitive, smart, helpful, automated tool. And that's what we aim to do every day.
Totally. Where do vendors, in your opinion, current vendors, like, where do they fall short? When they're saying they're offering this amazing solution, like they're saying this is all you need. Where are the gaps, in your opinion?
Well, I come from operational roles and running businesses my whole career. So I say this with acute understanding. These vendors are running a business, and it is very apparent at times that scalability or automation or SaaSification of the role of leave administration comes at the cost of human interaction and empathy. And from the jump, Tilt has always believed that leave deserves human at the center of it. So vendors, we find, very infrequently recognize, hey, you can't give this cold, archaic tool, let's use call centers as the perfect example, and expect that people are going to feel cared for. So we, again, very biased, believe that in this day and age and technological world that we're in, you can absolutely still bring the efficiencies that traditional vendors have somewhat paved the road for, but also create the space for the humans to interact when needed, for the more specific and personal, unique to you, is what I say, leave experience tools, whether that be, hey, I'm going, my lived experience, I did 7 years of in vitro, 7 years of IVF. The resources I needed at that time were so different than another person going on a parental leave who may have had a completely different path to pregnancy. Yeah. We have such a cool opportunity right now to provide those very specific resources and tools for that unique leave situation. I think that's so powerful, and that so speaks to what HR has always tried to do in terms of supporting their people. So it's just a really exciting time to be building this technology.
Totally. I mean, I think that we find most often that HR professionals don't see this as a box that needs to be checked or just a task that they need to get off their list. They want to be able to take care of people and to provide that really specialized, customized support. And yeah, it seems like with some solutions, they really don't have the opportunity to. Whether it's they don't know what's going on, they have no visibility, they don't know why or what the specific circumstances are, or it's really not solving the problems that they needed to.
I love that you said that. I think that's such a powerful addition of the visibility and the, like, what's going on with my team with this outsourced vendor? Are they being taken care of? And that access to transparency and ability to somewhat turn the dial up or down for HR as to, I want to see it all, or I just want to see the important, or something in between. Yeah. So important. I love that you added that.
Yeah. Not saying Tilt's perfect, but I do feel like you'll always be met with a group of people that want to make it right. I mean, that's kind of the other side of it. You will always be met with a group of people who their intention is true, and they are 100%. Always trying to provide the best support. So
100%.
What about compliance risk? How does outsourcing influence compliance and legal risk? And are there common misconceptions that HR leaders have?
I think that the leave landscape is so incredibly dynamic and complex, as we've talked about, that the legal risk or the ability to step out of bounds, as I say, is so high. And so as an HR professional, understandably, the expectation is make sure I'm doing this right. Yes, you are 100% entitled, justified, and should be asking that question. And with the dynamic nature of the leave space as it is right now, also having the confidence that those regs are updated in real time with enough lead time that you're also made knowledgeable as the HR representative in your company. I think it's really on the leave vendor's responsibility list to be proactive, to be clear, to remove and scrape all the jargon and complexity from it as best they can, and to make sure that that HR representative feels read in to the level of detail that they want. Again, we're back to like the customization or the specification unique to you. That should be accessible in any degree of specificity that you want, because it is so complex. And we know plenty of HR reps, right? I'm sure you guys know them as well, where it's, I don't want to know, like, that's great that Washington is updating next year's PFML program. You got it, I'm good. Whereas other HR reps are like, no, tell me, I want to learn, I want to understand, who does this impact, who does this not? And vendors have to be able to serve both needs.
For sure. Beyond logistics and all of this, I feel like we talk a lot about some of these things, the breakdown and what could go wrong, but how do you feel outdated or inefficient outsourced systems, what is the effect of those things on your company culture?
Oh man. I think when unnecessary friction is what I'll call it, exists particularly in people operations or HR, it has so many unintended ripple effects, because I've always said and believe to my core, the customer experience of whatever business you're running will never exceed your employee experience. That means your employee experience is paramount, top of the list, right? So if that is true, again, which I hold to be very, very true, then all the tools that bump up against your employees, whether intermittently like a leave, people aren't taking a leave all the time every day, or every day, like payroll or Slack or something that they engage with, those friction points have the possibility of amplification for the better or for the worse. So I think it's really imperative that the culture consideration is easy, approachable. Again, I can't say it enough, the unique to you. So you feel seen as a human being, you feel heard. Again, your leave story is represented in our world, in the vendor space. You know that you're being cared for in that way. That's huge for culture, absolutely huge. And I think that we're just getting started as to the power of what that personalization can mean for a culture in an organization.
For sure. All this being said, I'm sure there are people who are listening or watching and thinking, why is Tilt dogging on outsourced leave management, like as a leave management software? What can you say about what is ahead for Tilt, leave experience management, what that means and what that means for us, but also what that means for HR in general as a new category introduction?
It's so fun to be redefining this experience. We talked a lot internally about the Henry Ford story, right? People wanted a faster horse, where he got to see the Model T. And that same reorientation around what is possible is a lot of the generative conversations that Tilt and the leadership team here is having every single day. So I think that this leave experience category unlocks opportunities that honestly our HR partners have never even thought possible. I think a really cool example of that that's in place today, and actually has always been in place at Tilt, is pay calculations. We do a lot of discovery conversations with HR and talk through pain points, and pay calculations doesn't come up as often as we think. And we've learned because they've never had that outsourced option to have somebody else figure out the weird, complex, dynamic, nitty-gritty math of a leave of absence until now. So it's just one of those like delight opportunities to be able to bring to HR, especially those that are really interested in doing this differently, to say, we know you've never seen this before, but let us show you what's possible. And that is just so fulfilling and energizing. And then there's co-creation opportunities. So this leave experience category is electrifying, is the word I'll use, and just getting started. But Tilt sees the Model T. And that's the part that I can't wait for what's ahead and what we're able to bring to the market for the first time ever.